Hello everyone, my dear professor and my dear students. I hope you are safe in your homes, and we all hope that this pandemic will end soon. So our presentation today in research methodology tackles chapter 8 under the title Analyzing and Interpreting Qualitative Data. So as you have seen in the previous presentation, it was about collecting qualitative data. Now it's about analyzing and interpreting this data. So I will deal with the first part of the presentation, okay, and Fatima will deal with the second part. So the main objective of this chapter is that it tries to identify the 6 steps of analyzing and interpreting qualitative data. So there are 6 steps. This is a process. It involves 6 steps. And within these 6 steps, we have sub-steps. Okay, it means, for example, in the first step, I will deal with minor steps. Okay, so I will tackle the first 3 steps. Fatima, my colleague, she will tackle the 3 remaining steps. Okay, so it's a process. Now I will move to talk about why or what is the rationale behind these steps. What do we want from this chapter 8, which is about analyzing this qualitative data. So it's very important to note here that analyzing qualitative data requires understanding how to make sense of text and images so that you can form answers to your research questions. So remember, this is a process that is related to your research questions you stated in the first part of your research. At this step, at this moment, you need to answer these research questions by analyzing your text and images. We will see how we can do this. So here, my colleagues, I am sure that you are familiar with this question. I mean, if I ask you directly, what are the common steps followed in analyzing and interpreting qualitative data? So I'm sure that you are familiar with some of them. Okay, so this is a very good question we will answer for this presentation. So before I answer this question, the 6 steps, I will try to state or talk about the nature of this process. What is characteristic about this process of analyzing qualitative data? So talking about the nature of this process, so one major characteristic is that it is interpretive research. It's based on observation. It's based on documents, interviews you make, etc. So why it is interpretive? Because you make a personal assessment as to a description that fits the situation or themes of your research. Okay. Second, it is inductive in form, which means you go from details, notes, transcripts, the notes you jot down, to general codes and themes at the end. So it's inductive. You start from details, you go through those details to form general comments and general results. So here it's inductive. Third one, it's simultaneous. I mean, data collection and analysis are simultaneous. They can take place at the same time. They are concurrent, okay? So you can go backward and you can go forward, etc. Again, the phases of this process are iterative, okay? So you cycle back and forth between collection and analysis. So when you are collecting, at the same time you can observe and analyze things. You go home, you look at your transcripts, you can formulate questions. Tomorrow you will make an interview, so that interview may help you to see what you analyzed at night. So it's cyclic. It's going backward and forward. There's no problem in this. Okay. Another characteristic is that we're reading the data several times for analysis deepens your understanding about the information collected. So again, going back to what you have collected, reading the interviews, the transcripts you make, etc. It's very important. The more you read them, the more you deepen your understanding and your observations on this data. Okay? So now I will move to the steps now. So the first step here, it's called preparing and organizing the data for analysis. Okay? What does this mean? So you have a collection of documents you collected during the data collection process. You have these documents in front of you, but they need organization. They need to be prepared for analysis. Okay? So within this step, I have three minor steps or phases. The first one, you organize data. The second one, you transcribe data. The third one, you analyze them by hand or computer. Okay, we will see these three sub-steps in detail. Okay, so first, what is organize data? So after collection, you need to organize data into file folders or computer files. A 30-minute interview, for example, may result in 20 pages of single-spaced transcription. Hence, transcribing and organizing of information require a system of organization. Otherwise, you will get lost. So one interview, a 30-minute interview, may need 20 pages when transcribed. So you have to first develop a matrix or a table of sources to organize your data. Organize the materials by type. You can put all interviews in one folder, all observations in one folder, all documents in one, and all photographs in a different folder. So to help yourself find the resources quickly and not mix them up. Okay, you might organize the material also by participant, site, location, etc. So remember, keep duplicate copies of all forms of data. In case you lose the first document, you can go back to the backup copies or duplicate copies to help you, to resist this loss sometimes. Okay, so remember, this is organization. It's very important. Once you transcribe an audio tape conversation, you transcribe it in pages, you write it, and then you give it a title and put it in its convenient folder. So in qualitative research, you need to do a lot of transcriptions because you have interviews. You may have observations, but you need to make them written in a well-organized manner. So this is transcription. Okay, so this process involves converting sounds or words you collected from interviews or field notes during observations into computer text for analysis. Okay, so with time constraints, you may choose to have only a few interviews or a few observation notes transcribed, though the complete procedure of all observations and interviews is desirable. Okay, so remember, as I told you before, 30 minutes interview may result in 20 pages of transcription. Okay, so you need to organize all those audio tapes, all those field notes, observations in a regular, well-organized document or transcripts. These are some tips for transcribing. So remember, type the word pause to indicate a lengthy break between when the interviewee is talking. He may stop talking for some moment, so indicate that in your transcript. If it's a pause, write pause between parentheses, for example. Then leave left and right margins to jot down notes. So on transcript, leave some margins for you. When you read, you can take notes on the left or on the right. Third, you leave extra space between the comments of the interviewer and the interviewee. It's very good when you observe the whole transcript, you see where is the question and where is the response. It makes sense when there is space. Fourth point is that use complete, detailed headers that contain information on the interview. You label each interview with its detailed timing, for example, length, who is the person interviewed, what is the themes discussed. It's very important to give details to each interview, not to get lost. It guides you find your information quickly. Okay? So, in case you choose to analyze by computer, what do computers do, or what do computer software or programs do? So, to answer you, they do not analyze data, but they can help you do so. Okay, remember, if a computer can never function or interpret data as the human brain. So the programs have the features of these programs of analysis. They store data, they organize data, they assign labels or codes, they search the data. Okay, if you have a keyword, they can find it. They can help you categorize things. So they just assist you, they help you. They do not do the whole analysis. So these are some examples the author suggests in the book we have. So these are good ones. I mean, you can use atlas.t. You can find them on www.atlas.t.com. You can also use Hyper Research. You can use maxda.com. So these are softwares which are used for qualitative data. They are very popular ones. You can browse them in Google, you can find them. So I think I have done with the first step, which is organizing and transcribing this is one step. You organize your documents, you transcribe them, and you decide whether to use a computer or by your hand. Now, step 2 is you are going to explore and code these data. So after you have organized and transcribed your data and decided on whether to hand or computer analyze it, it is time now to start data analysis. So this step consists of two things: exploring the data, developing the codes. So we will see what is the codes and what are themes in this presentation. So before exploring the details of your data, you need to make a general exploration, exploring the general sense of the data. So a preliminary exploratory analysis in qualitative research consists of exploring the data to obtain a general sense of the data. So what do you do here? You memo the ideas, you think about the organization of the data, you consider whether you need more data or you can do with the data you have. Okay? So writing memos in the margins or field notes or transcripts or under pictures can help you in this initial process of exploring the data to get a sense of the whole, a general sense here. Okay? So this is the aim. So this is a very, pertinent question here. What is coding? Coding the data. So coding is the process of segmenting and labeling text to form descriptions and broad themes in the data. So remember, it's about segmenting and labeling text to form descriptions. So codes can address many different topics such as setting and context, example classroom, perspectives held by participants, for example saying poor learners within the context of violence at schools, participants' ways of thinking about people and objects. We can talk about processes as a code, activities, strategies, relationship and social structure. So these are all codes. They can be addressed within data analysis. So remember, coding, they are just labels. You put them on the left or on the right of transcript. Okay? So usually we start with, let's say 30, 40 codes, but at the end you have to minimize that by reducing the redundant codes. Okay, so you can end up just with 5 or 6 themes. So briefly, codes are labels used to describe a segment of text or an image. Sentences or paragraphs that all relate to a single code are called a text segment. So this is, I like this diagram which I took from the research book we are working on. So you can see this is a visual model of the coding process. So at the beginning you have many pages of text. So you initially read through text data, then you divide text into segments of information. So you can have many segments of text. Okay? Then you move to label the segments of information with codes. These segments, you group them, okay? So you can label them with codes from 30, for example, to 40 codes. We will see an example to see this clearly. And then you can reduce these 40 or 30 codes to 20, for example. So here what do? You reduce overlap and redundant codes. And then finally, you collapse codes into themes. So codes can be reduced to 5, 6, or 7 themes. This is a final step. Okay? So this is a visual, how you treat the text. You move to segments, you move to codes, and then finally to themes. So I try to provide a procedure you can follow in this process of coding. So you can follow these steps. First, you get a sense of the whole, read all transcripts carefully. 2, you pick one document or transcript, go through it, consider the underlying meaning of what the person states in 3 words. For example, in that interview, in margins, okay? After, for example, you read a paragraph. When you read the paragraph, you state what he says briefly in 3 words on the margin. You can choose the left or the right. 3, begin the process of coding the document. Identify text segments. Place a bracket around them, then assign an accurate code word or code phrase. Then, after that, after coding an entire text, make a list of all code words. Group similar codes and look for redundant codes. The aim is to reduce codes. If you have 20 codes, you can make it only 6 or 7 codes. Okay? 5, take this reduced list and go back to the data to see whether new codes emerge. Circle specific quotes from participants that support the codes. Then 6, reduce the list of codes to 5 or 6 themes or descriptions of the setting or participants. Themes are similar codes aggregated to form a major idea in data. So this is just roughly a procedure that is followed. It's not the model, it's not the unique one, but this is roughly what some researchers do. I know it's not easy to do this. We are not professional people. Beginner researchers, they need to learn about this. They need to try this a lot of times. But professional researchers, they can do this very fast. They are very experienced in this. Okay, but I know it's difficult for beginner research as students, as like us. So remember, at this process of coding, it's very important to identify 5, 6, or 7 themes by looking for the most frequently discussed, unique, or surprising ones, or those which support with evidence to write a report. Okay? So themes, those themes are the basis of your report and description. Okay? So from those codes, you can develop at the end 6 or 5 major themes, or even 7. So this is a good example, or this is a sample of a transcript. It's coded transcript. So you can see the text is in the middle. On the right, the author or the researcher, he makes or he notes the themes and other ideas. For example, one potential theme is the community. So by the way, the topic is the process of reconstructing curriculum in a rural high school setting. So potential themes developed is the community in the beginning. Then below he puts an idea, getting a good sense here for the community. Then he can also note down good quotes by bracketing them or by circling them. Okay, so on the right he develops a list of themes. On the left he puts the codes. Okay, so the codes are taken from the text. These are close-knit community, health of community or community values, change is threatening, visionary skills of talented people. So these are codes. Of course, codes which relate to the themes, which are general and should be general at the end. Okay, if you have let's say 2017 themes, you can only stick to 5-6 ones at the end, which you can use in your report. The most surprising, the most useful, the ones which answer your research questions here. So far, I have tried to elaborate on the two major steps, mainly organizing data, number one, and number two, coding the data. Now we move to step 3, which is using the codes to build description and themes. Okay, so describing and developing themes from the data consists of answering the major research questions and forming an in-depth understanding of the central phenomenon through description and thematic development. So now we move to description. Okay, so not all qualitative projects include both description and themes, but all studies include at least themes. They are compulsory, they should be there in qualitative research. What is description? Okay, description is a detailed rendering of people, places, or events in a setting or on a person in qualitative research. So, because description is a detailed rendering of people, places, or events in a setting in qualitative research, it is easiest to start the analysis after the initial reading and coding of the data. For example, in ethnography or in case studies, these are, part of qualitative research. Okay, the researcher provides a considerable description of the setting. Developing detail is very important here, and the researcher analyzes data from all sources, interviews, observations, documents, etc., to build a portrait, a description of individuals or events. And why? Because in providing detailed information, description can transport the reader to a research site or help the reader visualize a person. Remember that descriptions can be poor, can be professional, and they can tell experience. So for example, a poor example can be the work is built, the education building with 3 floors. But a better example, a detailed one, is this one. As the education building developed, iron beams crossed and connected it together. A giant crane lifted these beams into place with the lines secured tightly around each beam. A worker underneath the beam fastened it into place. As we watched, the beam tipped back and forth, leading us to wonder if the crane operator had securely fastened it. One slip and disaster would follow, but the beam landed securely in place. So you can see here that the better example, it provides a good picture. Details, they can provide good, complete picture of the setting. Whereas the poor example, it gives no details, it's too brief. Okay? So moving to themes, Now, in addition to description, the use of themes is another way to analyze qualitative data, because themes are similar codes aggregated together to form a major idea in the database. They form a core element in qualitative data analysis. Like codes, themes have labels that typically consist of no more than two to four words. Example: denial, campus planning, etc. Okay, so remember, qualitative research analysis sometimes may not include descriptions, but it necessarily includes themes. While interpreting, analyzing data, automatically you move to, use themes discussed in interviews, etc. Okay, so themes are compulsory in analysis. While analyzing, these themes, it is very useful, to see that the authors have one major theme and several minor or sub-themes subsumed under the major theme. For example, as a major theme you can find safety or security when talking about violence at schools. Minor themes or sub-themes, they can be safety of students in the classroom, types of service, or the safety provided by security men, etc. So we have major theme, underneath it or below it we can have minor themes. Also, while dealing with themes in analysis, you can sometimes find expected themes, themes which you started with before, in your research. From your research questions you can expect some themes, but sometimes you can find unexpected themes, which are very important. They are unexpected, but they can be surprising ones. So they can form a variable in your analysis. Also, some researchers, they talk about other categories of themes. We will see them later. So here, this is a good example to illustrate this point of major themes and sub-themes or minor themes. So as a title for theme, it's safety. So it may be asked by the interviewer directly. So, for example, do you think safety is very essential or is related directly to school violence? So it can be taken directly from the question, or it can be stated by the participant. For example, the participant can use safety as one component of his answer to your question. Okay, so because it's stated by the participant, and it's when we read the detailed description or transcription of this passage, we can see that it talks a lot about safety or security. And then you can see below that evidence for themes based on multiple perspectives of participants. Okay, so they all react to the variable of safety. And then below this you can find within themes are multiple sub-themes. So if you read below, you can see, for example, not only on the details of the incident, but also on the need to ensure the safety of the campus. Okay, this is one sub-theme, safety of the campus. So you can see within this process how major themes are developed and minor themes are developed. Another category is layering of themes. So you can speak about layers. The first layer can be one word of themes. For example, safety. Let's say safety. The second layer can be, for example, classifying safety, for example, from the sociological perspective and from the psychological perspective. So here we have two layers, the sociological and above this level we can have 5 categories relating to the psychological level and 5 other categories relating to the sociological level. So we can, some research talk about layers, layering themes. first layer, second layer, and third layer. I mean, moving from the general to the detailed layers of themes. Okay, so this is briefly, I mean, I just want to restate what is stated in this presentation. I tried to present to you the three main steps, mainly organizing and transcribing data as a first step. Second step is coding the data, okay, through, coding them within the transcripts. And finally, it's about developing description and themes. Okay, now I give the floor to my friend Fatima Al-Qasmi. She will talk about the remaining three steps. Okay, thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions or additions or anything, any comments will come in the discussion. Thank you very much.